Today is the day we finally discover if it's possible to beat Pokemon Gaia using only Steel types. The support on this video series has been amazing, and I hope you guys enjoyed the journey too. If at any point you are enjoying the video, leaving a like on the video helps a ton, so I know you guys are really enjoying the Pokemon content. But if this is your first video, then in the description and at the end of the video, you can find a playlist of every part up until now. It also explains what a monotype is, and more details regarding this challenge in particular. With that being said, let's finish the new Elders once and for all. Since I aimed to beat the final gym leader Richter in the last episode without potions, I'm gonna start not using potions in battle and see where that takes me. Since I agreed to rotate between Lux and Ritsuko, I wanted to use Artoria up until the Elite Four and then use Ritsuko to end off the series. I gave Artoria the XP share and then started to look for any event triggers. I went left of Loamus Town and found the Ecos Canyon. The interesting thing about this route is that every tile on it can trigger a wild Pokemon encounter. And trainer encounters too. While exploring, I found a claw fossil, but unfortunately that belongs to the Anorith line, which is rock and bug type. Eventually, I reached the end and found Jonas, Jarvis, Jar Jar, Japtis, Jolene, Cola trying to capture my attention. He heals up my team and starts a battle with them. Unfortunately for him, I got rid of my fear of Cola long ago, so his team of Hariyama, Flareon, Rotom, Gigalith, Torterra, and Mega Altaria was of no threat to me. I'm cured! Cured! Cola then tells us about a key tablet he looked into back at Salanto Town, which he states was found at Ignis Valley. He said to meet us over at Ecos Town, so a couple of steps later, and we arrive at Ecos Town. After talking to some of the residents, I learned that this was the final area before we get to the Pokemon League. But there's no time to rest, because we have a criminal organization to game in. I went and talked to an NPC who I was mashing the A button on, and they traded my Firestone for 4 red shards? What the hell, girl? I needed that Firestone! Probably. You know what? I need it more than the shards. Fortunately, you can trade the shards back into a Firestone for 1 shard more. And then I kept mashing the A button again and lost that Firestone again. But turns out there's a move tutor in that same building that can teach you some pretty good moves for those red shards. But I didn't think too much of it, so I just left. Then I found Cola camping around Herschel's front door, which was a little creepy, but that's besides the point. So we still need to know the move Molten Rays in order to wake up the Reggies, I think is what this is all leading to, but Herschel still refused to give us the move. Guess we'll die then. Obviously, Cola isn't taking no for an answer, so he wants to try and slow the new Elders instead, so it's off to Ignis Valley! I ended up giving Lux strength to push this boulder into the hole, which led to, yeah, we're heading the right way. I also found a Salamence site, but Salamence is Dragon Flying type, unfortunately. Speaking of Megastones, I talked to this random psychic who liked my Twisted Spoon and gave me an Alakazite in return. Oh, come on! I found a branch to the Ecos Ruins, but it only led me to the Dome Fossil. Yeah, this isn't a Steel type either. Going back, I'm then taken back to the Windmist Summit! Where am I going?! Too far back. Since I was at it, I went back to Windmist City and healed up. I found TM47 Steel Wing, which was actually a Steel type move. I taught it to Cola since it was stronger than Metal Claw. I must have gone around this valley like 3 times until I finally triggered the event cutscene. I am proud of you all, my children! You have child soldier! Anyway, Morgana kicks out her children to guard something. I don't know, speed up, go wee! And then Cola and I step in to stop Morgana once and for all. Her fight here isn't that different from the first encounter, but unfortunately for her AI, it just wanted to flex her cool new Molten Ray Salamence on my leftovers Ferrothorn, which resists it. Like, I get it. It sounds like a fire type move, but that's not how it works! Also, I like how Morgana uses a Revival Herb on Salamence instead of a Max Revive just to show how wicked they are. The Salamence shoots Molten Rays onto the tablet, and then Regigigas cries out, and now they're gone, I guess. Well, guess the Elder Knights are down to 3 now. Now Herschel admits his errors and that the entire region is in jeopardy. Good job, glad we got that sorted out. Now what are we supposed to do? Herschel invites us back to his home and explains that she has been transported to the Chamber of Gaia, a prison for Regigigas made by the Elders of Orptus. But lo and behold, there are more than 1 tablet idols, but it's only 3 separate pieces, which is probably what the Elder Knights are currently guarding. Cola then runs off to go get the professor, so I guess it's up to me to beat up the Elder Knights. Again. But, I think I have something better prepared for this. As requested, Rap God Scraggy is back? Timson! You did this to me, so I did it. But at what cost? Bar! I'm not lawful, make this stop talking. You're not one of the gnats, you just better keep walking. We all gawking when looking at your mons. Stick to sword and shield and stay man, but no Johns. You be spamming those buttons and you mashing it rotten, but you realize Wrath and Molten Rays ain't doing nothing. Like, I caught the Reggies, now I'm hot stuff. As far as world domination goes, you better wait for a buff. Ain't no telling how foolish you'll be looking. Tablet idol can't contain the ass whooping. Right when you realize your plans have hit the wall, that'll be your cue to throw your relic balls. Expose you as a fraud, yeah, there's no need to discuss. Who said you were a knight? I know it wasn't us. My friends told me that Ezekiel was tough, but after your performance, I think you said enough. Though, the only way to make you hush, first I'll body bag your Reggies, then Molten Rays them shut. For a woman of ice, Eunice, you ain't nice. My team will rip your team apart in one slice. After all of this, you'll be watching your back. Ain't no telling who'll be on the attack. Regigigas comes and you better come correct. Until you take the world, show these 50 some respect. Get it? Cause they're 10. P.S. Enoch, your name still sucks. Your team also sucks, too far from deluxe. Whoever wants to see the other nice looking dumb, throw your polka dollars out cause I'm making some. Gotta say guys, prep up for the finale. Wait and see what happens at the Ignis Valley. Better find some potions, you'll need plenty. Teach you a lesson and take back the world. I'm tired of rhyming. This is what you get, Timpson. Subscribe to Scrags20. Wait, no! I handed over all the 3 idol pieces, and then Herschel tells us a failsafe method the Elders of Orbtis had to calm Regigigas over at Cattle Island. But I guess we're just gonna go beat up Morgana first. Again. And her team hasn't changed. And neither did her AI, cause it's still mashing the A button! Himiko did clutch a Shadow Ball from Mega Gengar though at 1 HP Sashless. Shoutouts to Himiko. Honestly, the real thing I have to say about the Morgana fights and the Elder Knight fights in general is that even without potions, all that rule did was let them knock out some of my mons. Except Enoch. If you want to know how every Morgana fight went, just watch the first one from part 4 and pretend I lost 2 mons. Anyway, Morgana goes, "Oh, you forced to my hand," and wakes up the Reggie Trio and Regigigas, and we have to fight her a 4th time! Oh my god! This time, it gets a little tricky, however, since we don't get a heal in between, so we have to rock with what we left off with. And on top of that, Regigigas doesn't get slow start, so it's already immediately more threatening than in competitive. So I pretty much had to reroll the first fight if I wanted to keep doing this potionless. I eventually got a run that went pretty well. I was left with Lux, Arl, and Linnell, and if I wanted this to work, I need to set up with Linnell. Fortunately, the power of Ironhead saved me as I flinched the Regirock League twice with Arl. But unfortunately, Revenge still 2HKOs Linnell, who isn't at full HP, so I had to improvise. I knocked out the Regigigas in exchange for both Arl and Lux, which let Linnell clean things up. Now I needed this Registeel to miss 1 Focus Blast, which wasn't too hard since its accuracy is pretty low. Once it did, I had set up a Sword Stance and taken it down. The Regice was last, and using the Battle Calculator, not even Metal Claw +2 would OKO it. But I was using the Sword and Shield calculator, so I hoped that by some miracle, it would be different in a Gen 3 ROM hack, which was then that the Hacks Gods blessed me with one final triumph. This took me maybe 20 or so attempts to get this right, so please subscribe. Regigigas then goes wild, but then the Reggie Trio flees and Regigigas returns to its statue-y form. Then I guess the cops show up with Herschel despite there only being 2 tablet idols. I guess there's 5 now! Herschel reveals he used the Cattle Surf lock in order to put the rampaging Regigigas back to sleep. Back over at the real world, Herschel tells us that the Reggie Trio has been sealed away and Morgana is now prisoner. Fitting. Anyway, Herschel gives us HM07 Waterfall, which means we can finally take on the Pokemon. What is it now? Cola tells us that he finally beat Richter and will now proceed on over to the Pokemon League. So I guess now that the new Elders are done for, it's time to climb that waterfall, enter Victory Road, and face the final challenge. Unfortunately, Cole is struggling with HMs at the moment, so I headed back to Nestpine Town to clean up the movesets a little bit. But before I do that, I made the long commitment back to Telmeric Outskirts so I could catch myself a Skarmory, a Steel Flying type, and finally use Fly. I called him Esteban. I exchanged Artoria for Esteban and flew over to Nestpine to build the final team. I took out Cola's Dive and Linnell's Cut and gave them Scald and Shadowclaw respectively. Unfortunately, none of my team members had a super good hidden power type on them, but this is the final team going into the Pokemon League. Here it is, folks, the final 5 fights of the game. 6 including a possible and most likely rival fight. It was then that I realized I forgot Waterfall. Bye-bye, Scald. Up the waterfall was a Metachamite over to the left side of the river, which, say it with me, isn't a steel type. This Victory Road design is autumn themed and is similar to Gen 5's Victory Road in the sense that it takes part both inside and outside the caves. There's also a nurse halfway in, which is convenient. Anyway, right near the end of Victory Road, Cola pulls a Wally and challenges us on the final stretch. Using Surf 2, which was new. His team didn't change one bit from the last one, so neither did the battle strategy. Besides some Risco cheese. Sure, you won, but didn't I give you a run for your money? No, you didn't. With that, we finally made it to the Pokemon League. But first... And here it is, our final team, levels and stats going into the Elite Four. Now we can figure out once and for all, is it possible to beat Pokemon Gaia using only Steel types? And I'll let this roll so you can see the rest of the team and stuff. Hopefully this is enough time. Let me know who your favorite team member was in the comments below. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, let's find out. Interestingly enough, there's no badge check to enter the Pokemon League. Guess I could have just walked in Breath of the Wild style if I wanted to. The Elite Four works similarly to Gen 5's E4, where you can choose to fight whichever member in whichever order. I decided to just go from left to right since I had no idea what I was really going up against, so let's keep it blind. Inside the first room was Nikolai, the Electric type Elite Four. I fought this one a couple of times to get a feel for her team, so I'll just show the two best attempts. Nikolai led with Galvantula, and I led with Linnell. I set up a sword stance on her, and she used Sticky Web. She used Bug Buzz to chip my health a little bit first, but it wasn't enough, and I took down the Galvantula. Next was her Electivire. Its Fire Punch got me in the red, but I retaliated with one Earthquake. Third up was her ace, the Manectric. It Mega Evolved on me and knocked out Linnell with Flamethrower. At this point, I gave up and spammed Earthquake with Arl, which was when something crazy happened. Yeah, for some reason, a -1 speed Aggron, paralyzed, outsped a Mega Manectric. Cool! Lantern was next, which knocked out my Arl with one Ice Beam. Ritsuko actually lived a Surf and landed a Dig in return, but the second Surf took her down. Himiko was next, and she took down the Lantern after taking a Surf to the face. Nicola had 2 Mons remain, one of which was Magnezone. Magnezone tanked the Night Slash and knocked out Himiko. Then I tried a last-ditch effort with Cola, and Magnezone used Double Team? Cola used Scald and burned the Magnezone, so I took this opportunity to keep Cola for last, because I had no idea what her last Mon was. Is what I would say until I remembered Magnezone had Magnet Pull the hard way. To my surprise though, Cola tanked a Discharge and down went Magnezone. Last but not least was Electros, the electric type Pokemon with no weakness thanks to Levitate. Unfortunately, I didn't get the confusion from Rock Climb I needed and lost. The second attempt went similarly, but this time I kept Excadrill after taking down Electivire. I hard swapped into Arl and thankfully Mega Manectric finally missed Thunder, so I took the Mega Manectric down easily. Up next was Lantern, which unfortunately didn't change much, so Ritsuko knocked her out again. Followed by Magnezone knocking out Ritsuko again. This time I saved Linnell though, which ended up being really good for me since she one-shot the Magnetic Beast. There wasn't too much I could do with Linnell except good chip damage. I went to try to Confusion Hacks the Electros again, but then I realized Power Whip was stronger. And with that, we beat the first Elite Four member. The second Elite Four member is Knight. I've had enough of Knights for one day, man, please. I thought that since Linnell leading worked so well for me for Nicola, I decided to use her again here too. I assumed since his room was very dark colored, he was a dark type member, but then I heard his name, saw his clothing and his lead, and realized, oh, it's a steel type. So we both started with Swords Dance leads, but Linnell was too fast for the Bisharp and took it down. Then it sent out Malamar? And then I realized my dark type prediction wasn't that far off. In fact, Knight was a dark type trainer! I used Earthquake on the Malamar, but even with +2, it still didn't take it out, so it was able to retaliate with Night Slash. Malamar's HP was in the red, so I made a hard read on the AI to full restore, so I set up another Sword Stance and took it out. Next up was Sharpedo, which I was worried about since I know it should usually carry Aqua Jet, and if it was its Mega, its speed would have been pretty high regardless. Sharpedo outsped with Aqua Tail and knocked out Linnell and her +4 attack. Now that I was aware of Knight's typing, I sent in Caesar to get more of a super effective edge. Sharpedo used Protect, but it didn't matter to me since it was only delaying the inevitable. Next up was Knight's Ace, Mega Absol. It landed its Night Slash first, but Himiko took it down with another one-hit X-Scissor. Next up was Weavile, which scared me a little. I sent in Cola because I knew I could resist any possible Ice-type attacks it had. Unfortunately, Weavile landed a critical hit Night Slash, but Cola missed its Steel Wing. The same interaction happened again, except Cola landed this time, revealing a possible 2H KO. Since Weavile was way faster, Cola went down and all cleaned up with Iron Head. Last but not least was Honchkrow, which almost went down to one Rock Slide. I then ended the battle with some fun Ritsuko cheese after landing a full para for no reason and knocking out the Honchkrow. Yet another victory for us! Up next is a third Elite Four member, Kara. When the battle screen came up, I realized, oh no, it's a fighting type trainer. So after she tore Linnell into pieces on the first run, I decided I needed a new plan. I started off the second match with Ritsuko Cheese. The poor Mienshao saw the level gap and thought, let's meditate. Yes, meditate good. The poor fool, thinking you could underestimate Ritsuko Cheese. I landed the T-Wave, and now that I guaranteed me starting first, I used Dig, and on the second turn got a free full para, letting me take out the Mienshao. Up next was Blaziken, who couldn't outspeed my T-Wave, but regardless broke through the paralysis with a Flare Blitz. Fortunately, because Ritsuko seemed like free food for a fire type like Mega Blaziken, now that it was paralyzed, I could guarantee Cola outspeeding and taking out Kara's Mega really early. Kara's third mon was a Halucha, so I swapped into Himiko, which had Aerial Ace. It used High Jump Kick, which did a lot of damage, but I landed an Aerial Ace that was too strong, so Kara had to use a full restore. I high rolled the second Aerial Ace, but since Halucha outspeeds, Himiko ended up fainting first. For some reason, I decided Cola was a good idea, so he fainted to a High Jump Kick too. I knew High Jump Kick wasn't super accurate, so I banked on a hard play where I would use Sword Stance and pray it misses. And it did. But unfortunately, since it fainted before I had my turn, it just skipped my turn entirely, which sucked. Next up was a Medicham who also missed its High Jump Kick, so I got a Swords Dance in before taking it down with Earthquake. Up next was... Father? Poor thing didn't last a turn. Last but not least was Kara's last mon, her Lucario. This scared me since Lucario was not only fast, but extremely strong. Lucario attacks first, but Linnell lived at 11 HP, letting it take down the Lucario with one final Earthquake. That makes 3. Last but not least was the final Elite Four member, Leaf. From Thracia 776! Leaf is a Grass-type trainer who leads with a Ludicolo. I realized Linnell wasn't gonna cut it here either since Ludicolo probably had Swift Swim after that Rain Dance lead and outspeeding me after it, so I went with the safer pick. Himiko. Himiko attacked first and took down the Ludicolo in one go. Next up was Trevenant. I didn't know Ghost resisted bugs, so I landed a neutral X-Scissor on it, which dealt about half. Trevenant retaliates with Leech Seed, so I was probably going to have to switch out Himiko to prevent Leaf's team from leeching off of its HP. After that, one Aerial Ace was enough to take it down. Next up was... Boy. The reason I went Cola was because I predicted Sceptile to be the Mega, as well as considering the pattern of the AI in this game, sending their ace in the middle of the match instead of at the end. I predicted correctly, and he used the funny move, and Cola lands Aurora Beam. Unfortunately, it doesn't knock it out. Leaf uses another full restore, Aurora Beam, and then Mega Sceptile knocks Cola out with a critical hit, Leaf Blade. Linnell came in next, and it seems like the AI just really likes using Dark-type moves on my Steel types now that the resistance was removed. No matter, since Earthquake finished it off. Next up was Ferrothorn, which I wasn't too scared for since it's a bulky setup mon, so I just used Sword Stance myself and watched it Power Whip my Excadrill. Much to my surprise, however, it lived a +2 Earthquake and knocked out Linnell with another Power Whip. You know, because it's a bulky setup mon. My next plan of action was using Ritsuko Cheese. First, I used Dig to knock out the Ferrothorn. Now that Ritsuko was already out, I had planned to use Thunder Wave on the incoming Whimsicott, but Leaf decided he wanted to cheese me back with Attract. Come on, Ritsuko! Yeah! I wasn't gonna risk the possibility of Ritsuko losing a turn, so I switched out immediately to Aggron, since Whimsicott is part Fairy type, which is weak to Steel types. And hey, guess what my team's made out of? However, this Whimsicott was cheeky. It didn't get fully parried and went for a swagger. Whimsicott outsped Aggron despite being paralyzed, but this time was fully parried, so it was up to Arl to hopefully land a +2 Iron Head. And she did! That was enough to take out the Whimsicott. Leaf's final mon was an Amoonguss. I went for Earthquake since Amoonguss was part Poison type, but Arl hit herself in confusion and took a Giga Drain to the face, which still did a ton of damage. Fortunately, the next turn Arl lands an Earthquake, but it was then that I learned Grass also resisted Ground, and Amoonguss lived even with the crit. Amoonguss's health was low enough anyways for Himiko to finish the job. Once I exited Leaf's room, the Pokeball in the center of the main corridor turned purple. That's when I knew it was time. I didn't know what Herschel could lead with, but maybe he used Dragon types considering he had a Salamence. Still, I went with my guts and tried Linnell up first once again. Here's my team one last time. Now, let's do this. Champion Herschel led with a Wailord. I led with Lux. Wailord's Ice Beam was doing nothing on Lux, and Power Whip almost took down the Wailord in one hit. But after Herschel used a full restore, Lux pulled out a crit and knocked out the Wailord. Threatened, Herschel already pulls out his Mega Salamence. I sent out Cola expecting Aurora Beam to be enough. Thankfully, Cola lived in Earthquake, but unfortunately, Aurora Beam wasn't cutting it. That's when I realized it outsped and one-shot my entire team, which meant it was near impossible to beat Herschel, let alone the Salamence with my current team and Potionless. Even if Arl lived with Sturdy, Rock Slide wasn't enough, and Linnell couldn't take down the rest of his 4-man team. Now, this might be a weird part of the series to bring this up, but you might have asked yourself, why did you do all those mandatory selfies? What the heck even is a mandatory selfie? Well, I'm glad you asked, because with all the mandatory selfies we had taken throughout our adventure, we can truly harness the power of the friends we made along the way, the trials we've overcome, and all the cheese we pulled off. And every mandatory selfie is a physical reminder of that. Now, face not only me, but the mandatory selfies! I need this crit with Cola's Aurora Beam, so I just kept retrying the odds since it was still early on in the fight, so I could try as much as I want. So I did it over and over and over again. Of course, Herschel got some crits too at some points. However, thanks to the power of the mandatory selfies, I eventually got the Whaler scenario and the Aurora Beam crit I needed. But it didn't kill. So no matter what, I was probably going to lose Cola. I sent out Arl next since she had Sturdy, but unless she happened to outspeed anything on Herschel's remaining team, I had no idea what I was going to do. Herschel's third Mon was a Mamoswine. We have a long way to go, especially since that critical hit was the game changer. I had to get this fight perfectly. I used Lux next as he tanked an Earthquake. Lux retaliates with Power Whip, which did a pretty decent amount of damage. Unfortunately, that was it for Lux as it fainted to another Earthquake. I sent out Linnell next, who gets a critical hit Earthquake on Mamoswine, which mattered of course, thanks mandatory selfies. But now, Herschel was down to 3 Mons. His 4th Mon was a Yanmega. I wasn't too scared of it since Yanmega is super great, so I went with Himiko and took an Air Slash, which I prayed wouldn't flinch. Thankfully, it didn't, and Himiko was able to retaliate using its own flying type move. It did about half, and it wasn't in healing range, which was good enough for me. However, when I was preparing to take it down, Yanmega used Detect on me, so I couldn't knock it out. Most likely to stall for speed boost, I guess, despite it outspeeding me anyways at +0? And then, it happened. Yanmega double detected, and it failed. After Herschel chugged what was basically free damage, he sent out his 5th Mon, Alakazam. I was terrified of this Mon, since Alakazam is a very strong and fast Mon, but Himiko had the only tools that could deal with it well, which was Stab X-Scissor. If it lived anything, Alakazam threw, of course. But the power of the mandatory selfies comes in once again, as Alakazam uses Shadow Ball, and Himiko lives on 27 HP. Now I'm, losing it here, because my team is just popping off. But it wasn't over just yet. The last obstacle in our path was Herschel's Tangrowth. While Tangrowth is a bulky Mon, its drawback is that its speed isn't superb, which is great for me since Himiko had Stab X-Scissor, which is probably the make or break part of the whole thing. But with the power of my team and the mandatory selfies, I can't lose! Go! And in the end, I did it. I finally beat the champion of the Orbtus region, and have become the Pokemon League champion. So, I am proud to state that it is possible to beat Pokemon Gaia using only Steel... What? That's not a... Neither is... Huh? Scratch that. Due to a glitch in the Hall of Fame, it is indeed impossible to beat Pokemon Gaia using only Steel types. Okay, no, but actually... So I finally finished Pokemon Gaia. 3 months in the making, what started as a highlight of a challenge I did with a bunch of friends on an unpronounceable server, ended up being a 5-part checkpoint series. Thank you so much for the support on this series, because without you and your interest, I probably wouldn't have even made part 2. Now, as for my final thoughts on Pokemon Gaia, I really like the amount of effort that was put into the hack. It really creates an identity of its own, with all the custom music, custom sprites, the overall design of the region and its lore, etc. The challenge in this game was pretty refreshing, especially without potions, which made a lot of the endgame pretty difficult. Giving all of the notable trainers Mega Evolution after obtaining it yourself was a good way to increase the difficulty, and a lot of battles made me sweat near the end, especially since I was like 10 levels under. I do have some minor nitpicks, such as how frequently I got lost in the game, but it wasn't too hard to pick up right where I left off, but some indication on where to go would have been nice. There's not much else I can say without sounding redundant, as most of these things were already things I talked about in previous videos, which you should totally check out in the description or at the end of this video. If you want to see more stuff similarly edited like these, I do quote-unquote review videos where I talk about games I'm interested in. You can also find that playlist in the description below. I'm actually working on another Zelda Month quote-unquote review video for Spare Tracks Part 2, so catch up with Part 1 now. If you want. I'm not your dad. As for the upcoming Pokemon related projects, I'm also working on a video where I try to beat Pokemon Black using only Scraggy, so if you want to be notified for whenever that comes out, you should, hey, hit the funny red subscribe button. On top of that, I'm also doing a Ruby and Sapphire Soul Link with Safi every Wednesday, and it's formatted in a jump cut type format if you're into that type of stuff. And that's all for me. Thanks for watching. Up the waterfall was a Medicham mine over to the left side of the river, which, say it with me, isn't a water type. What? I wrote water type? No, it's supposed to be steel type. I swear, I didn't do anything!